Hi, this is Starkie Sowers. Welcome again to another Clark's Nutrition Facebook Live episode. Today's episode is going to be about cold and flu, some remedies, teas, and things of that nature. So gather around, maybe text up a friend or whatever you got going on, and see if we can't answer some questions while we're at it today. All right? So one of the things when we think about cold and flu, obviously, is it doesn't really feel good to get a cold or a flu, right? So one of the things that we've had for years is the idea of like selling different types of supplements or working with individuals that have cold and flu symptoms and things of that nature. So did a lecture earlier this morning for the Mission Inn Foundation. We were talking about colds and flus there. And one of the things we talked about was vitamin C. Years ago, Dr. Linus Pauling stated that vitamin C would be the cure for the common cold. One thing that we found out is it's not necessarily a cure for the common cold, but ultimately what it does do is it seems to lessen the symptoms, number one, because it has some antihistamine effects. Number two, the other thing that it does is it seems to shorten the duration of colds and flus. So typically, a lot of times when you talk to people about cold and flu and their remedies and remedies of choice, a lot of times they go, hey, vitamin C, you got to take vitamin C, it's like the best thing, right? And so like I said, ultimately, it doesn't cure the common cold, but we do see that it lessens the symptoms. Well, how much? Well, typically when you look at the Dr. Linus Pauling Institute, as well as if you look at the Oregon State University Institute, they've done some research on it, and they suggest roughly about 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day to be used during cold and flu times to lessen the severity and lessen the symptoms. Okay, that said, years ago, a guy named Dr. J. Patrick worked with an individual that was Dr. Linus Pauling, and they developed a vitamin C that ultimately is very rapidly absorbed, reduces the symptoms of colds and flus, and also good for like energy and things of that nature. You guys might remember this, it's called Emergency. Emergency's been on the market for years, right? I mean, I started selling Emergency in 1979. I remember coming to Clark's in 1978 before I worked here, ultimately to buy Emergency. So it's been on the market forever. So obviously the company's gone through some changes. It's been sold a couple different times. I think some pharmaceutical company owns Emergency now. So ironically speaking, we still sell Emergency, but we kind of maybe change the format on who we're working with when it comes to the vitamin C, all right? So once again, effervescent. One of the companies that we're working with is actually the Pauling Institute. So in favor of Dr. Linus Pauling, 52 PhDs, 2 Nobel Peace Prizes. Guy is a pretty sharp dude, right? So ultimately, this was his original formula, all right? Emergency is a little bit different, it's pretty darn close. It's been tweaked a little bit, but ultimately this was the original formula, and it comes in a packet. And of course, being an effervescent, the nice thing about an effervescent, it's almost kind of like an Alka-Seltzer, cold and flu type feel, where you've got something that's a little bit like, sitsy, just kind of fizzing along, things of that nature. Pop these things out, ultimately individual packets, just like the Emergency was. This is called Intercy, and very effective as far as like kind of giving you that antihistamine effect where it kind of reduces the cold and flu symptoms. A couple things with it. Also has zinc in it. One thing we do know about zinc, in 1987, I think it was, there was a New England Medical Journal study that came out and said, hey, what's going to actually help to really shorten the duration of a cold or a flu, especially like a head cold? And zinc was the number one thing that they looked at as far as being an alternative type substitute to anything else that you could use, right? Alternative medicine-wise. So zinc to this day is sold in the stores. It's relatively inexpensive. I think it's like $4 or $5 for like a bottle of zinc tablets, zinc lozenges, and especially when it comes to any type of symptoms with a head cold, zinc works very effectively as far as like lessening the symptoms and helping you get over it quicker. A couple thoughts though with zinc. Zinc itself, obviously, it's a trace mineral. The body doesn't need large amounts of it. Ultimately, the RDA for zinc ends up being roughly about 10 milligrams a day, all right? So a typical tablet, though, is going to have roughly about 23 milligrams. That's the clinical dose that they used when they were doing research with the cold and flu. So a couple of thoughts. They're going to recommend about 3 to 4 tablets a day. You want to spread it out throughout the day, number one. Number two, the thing about zinc is it can make somebody feel maybe a little queasy in the stomach. So the last thing you want to do is hit like 10 of these tablets, like in one setting. You want to start off like with one, basically suck on it, and then maybe 3 or 4 hours later, then do another one. The tempting part though, when you use zinc, it seems to like really clear up the head really fast when you've got a head cold. And so then you think, hey, one's good, let's do 20, right? Next thing you know, you've got a monster queasy stomach. Especially with kids, there's going to be indications or recommendations on the bottles for kids. You don't want to overgive the zinc tablet to a kid like in large dosages, because it might make them vomit. So I know that's kind of crazy to say that, but I did that with my own kid. I basically thought, hey, when it first came out on the market, hey, just have him take as many as wanted. And next thing you know, he was definitely sick and didn't feel good, and he ended up, for lack of better terms, vomiting up. So be careful, follow the dosage, pay attention to it, all right? So I think ultimately, like I said, vitamin C ends up being like one of the number one things people think about. During the 80s, Echinacea came onto the market, and not saying that Echinacea wasn't on the market before. Echinacea has been a North American Indian herb that's been used for centuries. So ultimately, Echinacea has got all sorts of different implications, but here's what we do know about Echinacea. A lot of people use Echinacea, and there's a bunch of different types of studies that were done on Echinacea. Some of the studies said, hey, you know what, Echinacea is useless, it doesn't work, don't even bother buying it, it's just a placebo, blah, blah, blah. Here's what we found out was this. First of all, there's got to be clinical efficacious type of Echinacea. What does that mean? So I toured a plant years ago. I went into this facility that was manufacturing vitamins, and they had an Echinacea product, so I picked it up and I looked at it, and I said, hey, what's up with this Echinacea? And they said, this stuff's like $1.99. He goes, yeah, we sell it in like 99-cent type stores on the East Coast. A guy in Malibu, he's got a nice house in Malibu, he buys this stuff, and he goes, we make it for him, it costs us about 60 cents. He sells it to them for like $1, and they sell it for $1.99. I said, man, dude, I wonder how many echinamides are in here, which is the active ingredient that stimulates the immune system. And the guy says to me, he goes, don't even bother. He goes, you won't even find any echinamides in this stuff because it's just garbage. And so ultimately what happened, a lot of people jumped on the bandwagon when it was Echinacea was good for cold and flus, the immune system, because what it does is it basically stimulates the white blood cells. So what do you mean by that? So ultimately, let's say when you get a cold or a flu, the white blood cells are one of the things that goes out in macrophages and basically kind of attacks either the cells or the bacteria or things that are causing the problem. If it's a virus, it kind of stimulates the white blood cells to basically deal with the virus. So what they found was this, is you've got to have a certain amount of echinamides, which is the active ingredient in Echinacea that actually stimulates the immune system. Then what happens is good companies like Vogel, Nature's Way, a lot of these good companies, what they do is they test their Echinacea to make sure it's got an adequate amount of these echinamides in it, right? So that being said, what happens is if the product gets rejected because there's nothing really of value in the Echinacea, because people do grow, some garbage crops every now and then, they go, oh, hey, we're not going to use this, get rid of it, it's not going to do what we need to do. Then they just send it to somebody else and somebody gets it for a cheap price. So when you buy Echinacea, buy the real stuff. Just don't roll into some cheap store and just go, hey man, I heard Echinacea is good for cold and flu. So ultimately, it's got to be the right Echinacea, it's got to be the good stuff. There's a lot of clinical research out there on the good stuff. That said, the A Vogel is a great one, Nature's Way is another one, Paradise Herbs. Those are all particular companies that have guaranteed amounts of the echinamides. Now, does Echinacea cure the common cold? No, it doesn't. So what it does do is it works on stimulating the immune system. Traditionally, herbalists only recommend that you use it for like 6 to 12 weeks, and then you take a break from it because you just don't want to stimulate the immune system all the time. Best used to prevent cold and flus are the first symptoms of cold and flus, okay? All right. So then, another thing that's very popular, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a bunch of little things, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to make life simple for you. Another thing, and what we'll do when we make life simple for you is we're going to show you what I call a shotgun or a multi-use formula. So olive leaf extract. And so when I was a kid, I used to rake up olive leaves all the time. I thought, man, there's got to be a use for this stuff. A couple of different things. The allopriminols that are in here, great for immune stimulation, antibacterial, antimicrobial. Also used, by the way, to help to lower cholesterol and other different types of things. But the olive leaf has become super popular. When you look at the science, it's moderate at best. But a very popular use product on the market. A lot of people love to use olive leaf, and people will swear by it, especially for respiratory disorders and things of that nature. Another thing is oregano. Okay, so I like to use the oregano oil. This is called Oregano Supreme. So this one has garlic and onions as well as oregano all in one. This is great for intestinal bugs and things of that nature. But the biggest thing on oregano, when you dig into the science, you look at the carbachol, which is the actual compounds in oregano. They have very strong antibacterial properties in them. So a lot of times when cold and flu season, you get the symptoms of like maybe head cold, using oregano is an excellent product to work with, all right? And I mentioned garlic. Garlic's a great product. Lots of research, especially the kyolic garlic. A lot of research has gone into that for cold and flu symptoms, and not only for prevention, but also like maybe helping the body when one gets the cold and flu. All right? So, what I was going to tell you is that when it comes to what I call the shotgun formulas, this particular product not only has the zinc, not only has the vitamin C, it's also got the Echinacea, it's got the astragalus, it's got the oregano, it's got everything in it. So System Well by Nature's Way, this is definitely a favorite go-to for myself. The other one that I like is the Immune RX from Clark's. Once again, this particular product is going to have the oregano, it's going to have the Echinacea, a bunch of other different compounds added together. All right. So, finally on that area is Immune Tea by Life Seasons, another great product when it comes to a shotgun formula. This one's a little bit different. This one's kind of like what I call the upgrade, you know, on some things. This has some larch in it, it also has some shilajit in it. So shilajit is really interesting. It's basically like a black pith, so to speak, that you find in caves. And ultimately it's got a super rich mineral bed. And a lot of people will use this for stimulation of the immune system as well too. All right, one of the most popular things that's out there right now is sambucas or elderberry. So ultimately elderberry, when you look at elderberry, what's unique about elderberry, there's some research on elderberry that suggests that it prevents viral attachment. Ultimately, one of the things we know for this, it's a traditional use formula when it comes to being used for cold and flus. In fact, it goes back to 2005 with some of the original research, but if you really want to go back, let's go all the way back to like 1905. Dr. Edward Shook, there used to be a guy in LA, he had an herbal school in LA. This was his #1 go-to when it came to colds and flus. A couple things that are unique about elderberry. When you first start using elderberry, one thing that you'll notice, sometimes it kind of agitates the fever a little bit. It kind of knocks it up a notch. And what it does is it excites the white blood cells, a little bit like Echinacea, not quite the same, but it causes the body really to kind of start fighting off any type of invaders that are coming into the system. All right, simply put, a lot of people like to use just a tea. Throat coats, a favorite one in the house, and immune support, another great one in my house, yogi teas. I love their teas. Works amazing. Finally, let's talk about nailing down the symptoms of cold and flu. So this is a product that I've used for years, oscillococcinum. In any type of fever, you got to nail this thing first sign of symptoms. You just got to hit it. Like, okay, I got some symptoms, man, I got to go for it right now. This thing's been clinically proven, 487 individuals used in the study, and actually lessens the duration of the flu pretty substantially. So it's one of my favorite. A couple unique things about homeopathy. Remember, it's been diluted. So what's in this? Basically, it's diluted duck heart and duck liver. Why the duck? Well, the duck is an avian bird which carries every flu virus known to man. So when used appropriately, it reduces the symptoms of cold and flu. All right? And finally, in that world is umka. Umka is a South African herb, and ultimately this is done in a homeopathic preparation, so you'll see it's done and with a label claim on it saying colds and flus. So when you look at umka, once again, shortens the duration and the time of colds and flus, and there's some other homeopathic remedies in here well for head cold symptoms as well too. All right, so it kind of gives you a little background, so maybe some favorites that we do here at Clark's Nutrition, some of the things that we like to use. Been using them for a long time. There's a lot of science base in it, and then some of them are what I would call traditional use. There's maybe not a lot of science, but a lot of people get into it. A couple things, don't forget about the ad. So get online if you want. We've got this. Make sure that you sign up as one of our Plus members, and this will get sent to you on a regular basis on emails. A couple of ads on the back, some coupons. Always fun to have the coupons. $5 off some Keto Fit and some Keto Meal. As you guys know, keto's huge. It's like monster huge. Everyone's doing it. I inadvertently use keto throughout the week. I don't do it all week long. I use more of a modified version. I've been using that probably for, 35 years or better. Another fun one that I like here too is a free Kind bar. I kind of like the Kind bars every now and then, especially the protein ones. You get one free with a purchase of 4. All right, so that kind of wraps it up for the week. So my thoughts are, stay well. Do everything that you can. Make sure you connect with your doctor. Make sure that if you've got the cold or flu, you're getting the care that you need. And use some home remedies to make things feel a whole lot better. Thanks again for watching.